Today I'm going to have the great pleasure of talking about Chopin's Barcarolle. Permit me to say that perhaps this is my favorite piece in the world. Let me just play the opening.
Oh, hi there. Chopin's Barcarolle is one of the absolute treasures of the piano repertoire. And in this video, two pianists and lifelong friends, Garrick Ohlsson and Emanuel Ax, will try to put their fingers on what makes this piece so special. The funny thing is, Garrick has played the Barcarolle practically his entire life, whereas Manny just added it to his repertoire a couple years ago. And what's so interesting to me is to see these two great musicians who respect each other so much break down the same passage from the same piece, and then looking for points of overlap and ways their interpretations might diverge. Now, these scenes are taken from two separate videos I produced for Tonebase. One is an in-depth tutorial with Garrick Ohlsson, where he spends 80 minutes digging into this masterpiece. The other is from a series of interviews I did with Manny Ax on interpreting Chopin. Check out those on the Tonebase Premium platform, and meanwhile, if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe and ring the bell. And now, I'll hand it back to Garrick.
Here we have a falling apart edition of Chopin from 1968, Paderewski edition, from which I learned the piece. Oh, I guess I do some of what's written too. That's good.
You had a list of dream pieces of Chopin that I'm surprised you never played. I was like, yeah, I'll look up Manny's old Barcarolle. Oh, he didn't play it yet.
There's so much stuff I haven't played, but a lot of the late Chopin pieces I had not done. I'm just very slow. You know, my friend Garrick Ohlsson and I always talk about Garrick and say that every time I learn a piece of music, he learns the complete works of that composer. I learn Chopin ballad or something, and he learns the complete Chopin. We can't discuss Garrick in normal terms.
It starts on a low C sharp and then is answered by a chord. It's a triad, but combined with a C sharp, it implies a 9 chord, which is already very colorful for something of that period. This 9 chord, whose functionality is to lead to the tonic. In other words, it's all on the dominant of the key. Of course, that's just boring academic talk, because that's not how we hear music, and does not explain the magic of this small introduction. If you look at the lines of it, there are three sort of three contrapuntal lines, not precisely defined. There's a tune, which is a nice intro, and underneath there's a beautiful consistent pattern, and above the C sharp there's... So we have a lot of lines.
What's intriguing there also at the very opening, the 5 chord that will lead, everything is... At the same time, you have in the right hand this kind of tune. But while you hear that tune, what the bottom voice is doing is... So it's descending along with this. I probably can't play it at the same time, but you know, they're both descending this way. How he makes that work, I have no idea.
The whole thing is kind of a once upon a time. I think, like most of Chopin, it has a gracious lilt as opposed to a 1, 2, 3, 4 squareness. It's not, because it has no magic to it at all. And an analogy I like, this is just an image I've had ever since I was first learning it, was, having been in Venice, how they have these gondolas. By the way, Chopin never went to Venice, but he could dream about it. They have these gondolas which have this kind of funny, slight shape so that the rower can row just on one side of the boat while standing. So there's a kind of, it's watery. Whoom, whoom. So I think he's more or less painting a tone picture here, but I leave that to your imagination too. And Chopin provides another Chopin-esque quandary, because he marks it cantabile. It's a song for two singers, obviously. It's an operatic duet. Two women's voices. I've heard it played so that it's played as a top voice solo. I don't agree. Just to poke out the tune and say, look, here's the tune, I think is a little primitive for a piece like this. That's just me. I also don't think it should just be... It shouldn't be solid and factual. It should be somewhere in between.
I have here a recording of Rubinstein from 1928.
His very first recording, maybe.
You already feel the water.
Yeah, yeah.
Usually the water starts here. I already felt the current.
Fast. You see how the top is always... It just sounds like there's another guy playing everything else, and he's right, and then there's and then there are other people playing the other crap, and that's unimaginably hard to do. This kind of balance to have. To really sustain that so beautifully, he was such a master with that.
Now, Chopin presents you with a whole bunch of conundrums. Let me just point out how many times he goes 1, 2 in these opening bars. 1, 2. Then in bar 6, 1, 2. The tune starts on the 2. In bar 8. Bar 10. Bar 14. So it is an odd beginning to a tune to start more or less 1, 2. It's almost as if it's been going on. The first thing he gives you is a diminuendo down. How do you sing that way? You have to have a big breath first, because otherwise it's just blah, da, 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 da. So inside of yourself, you have to get some kind of energy going, which nobody will know about. A quite natural way of doing it, a musical way, a natural way would be to start more softly and make a crescendo to the high note. 1, 2. I suppose that would be not unlogical, but what Chopin does is so much more magical. He sort of throws it out there, pa, and then he just lets it drift away. Then in bar 7, he does what's very hard to do, and I don't think I ever do it quite successfully, is makes a crescendo. Let me try to show you into the next part of the phrase, rather than yield musically. Which sounds nice too, by the way. so that you actually feel the suggestion of the singer's voices, dee da 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 yum, which only singers can do, or violinists, or instruments that have breath, but we can't do it. So we have to somehow suggest it. Many people get frustrated with that opening, or in bar 10, when da-dum, pa, rather than, it's never da-dum, bum. You have to follow through.
And then comes the whole issue of what do you emphasize when? In this, do you go sorry? Do you go there and then? Or, of course, you could do the exact opposite.
Back off soon.
Yeah, well, back off of here. And then make the crescendo to that. So,
do you practice in a way that leaves open the possibility for that spontaneous decision?
I think ideally you try many, many, many ways, especially in music like this, because first of all, I never know what's right. There's a good German word for practice or rehearsal, which is Probe, to try. So you have to try.
So I wish you many happy years, many, many happy years with this piece. I really feel that, in all of Chopin, there's nothing greater, although I could have said that about lots of his works. And in all of classical music, as I said, I take the chance of saying it's perhaps my favorite piece in the world. Of course, that's a little childish to say, but it's all right. Please enjoy it.